news you can use.
This is The Scoop. I'm Louise Thompson, the Executive Director of Tampa Bay Community Network, and with me today is David Fischer, who's the President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay. Give us a little summary of the services and the history of the Community Foundation.
Well, the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, I like to compare it to like a United Way, and people are really familiar with that. They give, and the money goes into the United Way, and then it goes out, and the next year they recharge in the same fashion, and they do good works. With the Community Foundation, it's a little different. The money comes in and stays in. So the people, in a sense, when they come into a community foundation, kind of graduated a little bit. They went from givers to philanthropists, because philanthropists and philanthropy can be forever. So they start an account with us, Joe and Sally Smith Family Fund, for like $10,000 minimum, and we have millionaires also. And they build their fund through the years, and they get an immediate tax deduction when they start their fund. If they start, we'll say with $100,000, they get a $100,000 tax deduction immediately. And then the money is invested with a pool of other donors, and we have well over 500 donors through the years we've built up. And then they grant out to their favorite charities during the year. And when you have 500 different family funds, you can imagine if you put them all in a room, so where do you recommend the money goes from your funds? It goes everywhere. It goes to their churches, it goes to their schools, it goes to social service agencies, orchestras, museums, dog and cat shelters. If it's what we call a 501c3 or a recognized IRS nonprofit, it's legal. And so the money, last year we set a record. We granted out some $13 million throughout 4 counties, because we operate in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, and Hernando. And this year, we started in 1990, so we're kind of a baby in this field. There's 700 community foundations across the United States. You can name the city, the chances are they have a community foundation. And we started in 1990, and the movement started in 1914 in Cleveland, so it swept across the Midwest and the Northeast. Didn't get here to Florida till the late 60s and 70s, didn't get to Tampa, and the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay till 1990. So we're young in the field, but we have, as of June 30th, we had close to $140 million in assets. Granted out, as I said, last year, $13 million. Put all those years together since we were formed, and we're reaching $100 million over the last 18 years.
So this sounds like a good way to build the amount of money you wanted to bequeath or do right now today, or donate later at a better rate as well, because you're already deducting it while you're deducting it from your assets right now, rather than wait until a person's right. It's left.
Some people will say giving while you're living, that type of thing. And our motto is for good, forever, because Joe and Sally Smith, while they're giving, when they pass on, it will keep giving, and they will behave just like Rockefeller or Ford or Gates, and they have billions, but for, as I say, a starter of $10,000, they behave the same way.
And with these community foundations, and there were, you said there were over 700 of them, right?
Yeah.
The folks that are involved in each one of them are like neighbors of that area, right? They're not from outside, typically.
Right, they're from here, and most of the granting that they do stays right in Tampa Bay. You do have the people who give back to their schools up north, or the Boys and Girls Club in Dayton, where they grew up.
Okay.
So about maybe 5% or less goes out of the area, but by far the major amount's right here.
So, so what you do with the money is invest it. How are those decisions made? Investing in today's market, I'm especially concerned.
It's tough.
But anyway,
but we do it by the book. We have an investment committee. They set up guidelines, like say 70% equity and 30% fixed. They want asset managers for large cap, mid cap, etc. They use a consultant for that. He suggests it, the managers come in, and then they watch the fund. And since inception in 1991, it's grown at about 7.5% a year average.
On average, even though you might have taken a hit like the rest of us did.
Sure.
This past,
we were 9.5%, so that it has declined.
Oh, that dropped it. Dropped
it.
your average down.
Yeah,
2%.
this is a tough year for everybody.
But and the point being though that over the long term, if you and that's why people put this money in here over the long term. Now, the decision about which nonprofit to fund is made solely by the person who starts their own fund, or are there recommendations made by others?
Well, it's basically they have the charities that they know, or the church they go to, or the school they went to. So they'll have a pretty good idea. And as long as it's a legal entity, we do check to make sure it's not some organization that doesn't qualify. So it's got to qualify. That's why we say recommend rather than direct, because they can't just say it's going to go there if it's not a legitimate place.
Can they change their mind about where it goes every year,
Yes.
or the percentage that goes from here to there?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so because if they get mad at their old school,
Sure, that's right.
which can happen.
Oh, yeah.
It can happen
They
because
teach
their
the
old
wrong
school.
subject
Yeah,
or
what
something.
are you doing? Right,
That's
I don't
right.
like that anymore.
Yes, they can change it.
So they can make a change to it. And participating, and so, okay, in Florida, are there a lot of them in Florida?
There are 26 community foundations in Florida. Once again, you name the city, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, you name them, they'll have a community foundation.
Have they been around as long as the 1990 or even longer?
Well, they've been long, most of them have been longer than 1990. They started in about 1970 and through the 70s. But Florida's late, like everything else. If it started up north back in the 20s, didn't get down here till air conditioning came down.
Oh, sometimes I wonder if they're just hearing 50s music for the first time.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to say that. I love Florida, but it's true that on some things we aren't ahead of the curve, but on other things we definitely are. I want to hear more about the effect of this recent economy on those nonprofits, and maybe how you're offsetting that, which I'm certainly hoping that you do. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back and learn more about what's happening with the Community Foundation in Tampa Bay and perhaps some other areas. We'll be right back. We're back. This is The Scoop. I'm Louise Thompson, the Executive Director of Tampa Bay Community Network. And with me today is David Fischer, who's the President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay. David, this economy that we're in, I won't open a statement because I'm afraid. How is it affecting these nonprofits that your philanthropists are supporting? Is it affecting them?
Well, it will, certainly. This will be a time, just like with the corporate America, you will have to look at budgets. You will probably have to trim your budgets. People will get hurt in this. If you're feeding people, or if there are abused children, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have to really be sharp during this period. I would guess that contributions are going to be down. We're already seeing it with us. Generally, towards the end of the year, many people use the Community Foundation as a vehicle to build their funds, say, with appreciated stock. It's going to be tough this year. So I think everybody's going to have to tighten their belt to get through this and manage better.
So when someone who participates in the foundation puts in, let's say their first investment was $100,000, they're not agreeing that will be the amount they'll put in every year. They'll put in whatever they can handle that year, and then they'll contribute more to it as time goes by, or not.
It can grow or it could go down. It could go down if they, with individuals, they can grant out as much as they want. If they put in $100,000 and they wanted to grant out $25,000, they could do that to their favorite charities. We have 120 agencies with us, like the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and Spring, and the Metropolitan Ministries, people that you would know. In fact, you can just about name the nonprofit, and chances are that they're part of our family is pretty good. they get 5% of whatever their asset value is. So if they have a $100,000 endowment with us, at the end of December 31st, they would get $5,000.
Okay, so if, okay, they do that, they don't have more control, they can't pull any more out?
No.
Even if they've agreed, even if they're in dire
Even if they're
straits like they are now?
Even if they're in dire straits, because what will happen with endowments, you get in dire straits, and there's going to be cycles when that's going to happen. If you pulled your endowment down rather than budget wisely, I mean, everybody's going to have to cut back here. And if you start pulling your endowment down, then you would never end up with a big endowment. And the endowment, like colleges and universities know, who've been doing this for decades, is a great sustainer of their organization.
Over very long term.
Very long term.
So because it's not touchable, and you would want to rate it as soon as possible. But not only are they going to not have contributions to their, and we're one of them, that has been affected by government cuts and so forth at Tampa Bay Community Network, but what you're saying is, okay, so if a nonprofit is participating in the community foundation, they put money into it, they may see less than they're used to seeing at the end of the year. That 5% is going to be 5%
of maybe a lesser number.
A lesser number.
Could be.
Then they also may see that the people who have been donating to them regularly can't do it anymore. I mean, this economic downturn, interestingly, I was talking to a retailer of high-end goods in the Tampa area, and she said, you know, usually when the economy goes down, people who have wealth, and as she put it, trust babies, they continue to be fine, but they're not. And so it's affecting everyone across the board, not just you know, some segment of our population, correct? So,
well, it is affecting everybody, but the philanthropists, those are the people who really want to give, and then they get organizations that just do great things, and they want to support those organizations. History will show in down cycles, sometimes they keep giving. And so those that are real believers and don't want to see the organization go that they've helped build up through the years, they'll stretch probably during this too. The average donor probably won't be there as much, but maybe some of the big donors will. They'll realize the problems that are out there.
oh, they may give a little bit even more if they if they can.
Yeah.
Okay, if they had the dollars to begin with, that'll be. Now, in all these community foundation situations, the only way that a nonprofit will get involved in the community foundation, because it's mainly a philanthropist group, right? But it's giving to this, is that they would open their own account. Is that correct? Or is there another way?
It's not a requirement. I mean, our donors certainly give to a lot of charities that don't have endowments with us. And also, we do have a granting period in spring and fall, where just like with the United Way or some other organizations, the applications come in. And we have a grants committee that grants out to those that they select. And they don't have to have a fund with us necessarily.
Oh, so it's not just, and that, is that money coming from the Community Foundation or from some of the philanthropists who say, you decide this?
Exactly.
They may say, well, okay, I want you to always give $10,000 to the Boys and Girls Club because they meant a lot to me, but you can give another $10,000 to any charity you think is in need, because I can't watch these and I don't know who they are.
Exactly. They'll say, you know the issues of the day, and your grants committee is staying on top of this, and we'd like them to handle our giving for us, especially when people pass on. And I always say,
true.
Sure, they're going to say, hey, times are, you know, everything's going to change, and you do the granting for us. And I would say if we have, like we ended the year with 140 million, there's probably 4 times that much in people's wills when they pass on. So there are foundations up in the Midwest. I usually pick on Kalamazoo because I got to know the director there. And he said they have a city of 200,000 and they have 300 million in their community foundation.
Incredible.
We are an area of 2.5 million people going to 4. And we'll have 1 billion in our foundation someday. And if we had started back in the 20s and had $1 billion, we wouldn't be in the problem. These agencies out there, nonprofits, wouldn't be in the problem they are today. We'd have a lot more money to grant out.
Kalamazoo. So these Kalamazoo, that is the place where, what was it, General Mills, General Foods,
I think
the big...
maybe Kellogg.
Kellogg's, yeah, I'm an old
Yeah,
General.
Pfizer. Michigan's full of really old line, solid corporations.
With apparently some people who made some money from those corporations.
Yep.
At least they didn't raid their funds like we've had recent talk about here. Well, that's wonderful that they're able to do that and keep a support network going. All right, so I want to ask you more about the application process, and we'll do that when we get back. This is The Scoop. I'm Louise Thompson, the Executive Director of Tampa Bay Community Network, and with me today is David Fischer, who's the President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay. You mentioned earlier that nonprofits could apply for some money from their community foundations. What's the criteria that you're looking at when they apply?
Well, number one, they must be a 501c3, and that's the IRS designation of a nonprofit that qualifies for tax deductible contributions.
Okay.
And that's really the only thing.
Well, you must ask a lot of questions, though,
Plenty
right?
of questions. We want to know who their board is. We want to have their financial statements. We want to, of course, know their mission, see if that mission is critical compared to the others that are coming in. I mean, we'll get maybe 25 to 50 applications, and you narrow it down, that's 5 or 10, you know, going right through the process, bring the people in, and so it's quite a process.
So it's not, there isn't a particular criteria, like, well, you better be a nonprofit for 10 years, or you may have to have a certain percentage of your dollars coming from one source or another, or something like that.
We're looking mission. Are they serving a category that may have a gap in it? Like last fall, our board said, let's take a look at-risk youth.
Okay.
And there are programs, one especially good one in Tampa here with aging out foster kids.
Oh, I did a show on them on our channels.
Connected by 25.
That is an unbelievable, you know, people don't know about that.
Yeah.
I never realized that a kid who's 18 years old is in foster care. He's on his own. The minute he turns 18, he could still be a junior or a senior in high school, and he's on his own. And yet he has no structure around him. He doesn't have an apartment. He has no connections.
50% are still in high school.
Oh,
25% will be incarcerated by their time at 25, and on and on and on. And we look for something like that. That's a pilot that can be exported other places. We're working with the Metropolitan Y on a program they're starting up in the Sulphur Springs Elementary School for an after-school program that they have gotten. They've imported it, really. It's a Harlem program. It was, I call, institutionalized out of Minneapolis, called Beacon Centers, and they're introducing it to Florida. And as we know, between 3 and 6 o'clock is the dangerous period for kids after school, and they're going in there, so we're supporting that pilot. And if it's successful, and I think it will be because it is in other parts of the country, then we'll export that around our region. So we look for something that's new, going to have an effect that we can have an effect on, and it can be portable in the 4 counties that we're working in.
And you had defined already that at-risk youth was a really important and underfunded.
Yes, and that's because we were into education. We had found that Pinellas and Hillsborough were going to lose 40% of their principals in 4 years. And we went to the school administrators and we said, look, you've got a tough retirement bubble going through their system. I think we can help. And we set up a program with the Leadership Development Institute at Eckerd College. And as of December last year, we'd sent 450 people through, aspiring principals, through that leadership program.
Because they were actually going to lose a tremendous number?
Right, in a short period of time.
I wonder how that happens.
A retirement bubble. There was a period, you know, probably 40 years ago when they had a big retirement, a big expansion of the school system. They employed a lot of people, and now there's, like, police departments run into this, and fire departments run into a big employment bubble, and then they retire altogether, too. So this
Oh,
was,
and also we had a big birth bubble
Sure.
65 years ago, didn't we?
so these
So,
things,
so the baby boom of
yeah,
after World War II, right? And
Yep.
then so they're all running into retirement age. So this helps younger folks to learn the skills that they need to be able to run a school system.
exactly.
And that's an ongoing program that you do?
Well, we've shifted because we kind of worked through the bubble, but it's really worked. When I go into a school and a principal will come up to me and say, boy, I went through your Leadership Development Institute out at Eckerd College that you had set up through that organization, and it was just life-altering for me, and that's good to hear. So we made a real impact on that, but we wanted to move on to something else, and at-risk youth is a big subject. There's a lot of agencies that work on it, and so we let it be known we're looking for new pilot programs that might be effective, and let us hear from you. And we did, and it's on its way.
You don't make all these decisions yourself, even though you got this grand title, President and CEO, right?
I have a big organization as far
Okay.
as...
Tell me about who your leadership is.
All right. First of all, I said big organization. We're not a big organization. We only have 11 people doing all this. In fact, last year, I'm going to toot my horn, our horn a little bit. We were ranked #1 in the country of community foundations by the Charity Navigator, who's the watchdog organization, as the most effective, cost-effective community foundation in the country.
Okay.
So
you mean 11 paid staff? Is that it?
that's it.
Okay.
Running $140 million.
But then you got a lot of volunteers running the show, right?
Oh, we got a great board.
Okay.
Yeah, and it started, and if you looked at our board through the years, you'd see tremendous leaders from Tampa. I mean, who were head of your
Bankers?
GTE, bank presidents, exactly. They're there, and we have 4 divisions, as I mentioned, in Sun City, St. Pete, Pasco, and Hernando. Same thing. They all have their own boards, and that's why we're so efficient, by the way. They have their own grants.
Is there a total of 11, even though you're running all those 4 counties?
We're running all 4 counties, and they have no overhead. We're the overhead. That's why we're so efficient. They have their own boards, their own granting, marketing, and all the back office and printed material is all done by us.
So how do people get involved in being part of your leadership?
Well,
Most of those folks are probably donors, correct?
well, half of them are donors, and the other half we're educating to be donors. You know, that's part of a board too. Bring them. Well, they're not a donor yet. They will be when they find out what we do. They're leaders, and they're shakers and movers, and we want them to be involved with us, that they'll go back to their organizations and say, there's an outfit that's doing a great job there.
I really appreciate your taking time out of your day to come down here and explain how the Community Foundation works. Thank you so much, and we'll see you probably next time. Hope you can use some of this news. Goodbye.
News you can use.